Well, hello and welcome to the wrap. This is a show rounding up all things Zwift from last week: racing, events, tech, fashion, you name it. We are live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It is Thursday, July 20th, 2023, and this is episode number 53. It's a special episode because Anna's on a plane. I'm Nathan Guerra, and instead of Anna, we've got Eric Schlange from Zwift Insider sat next to me, someone who's actually from, well, is that the right way to put it? Someone who's also, I'll put it that way, from the US of A, but on the West Coast instead of a couple of time zones over. Instead of an entire next day, we're actually in the same day, at least, to be able to reference this.
Yeah, closer.
but Anna's actually also in the USA right now, which is pretty awesome. I was hoping to be able to connect with her, but she's all the way in Colorado. You're all the way in California. We couldn't have a Zwift Insider / the Wrap meetup. That would have been pretty cool to schedule. But episode 53 here, we're going to be talking about what we've been up to. We're going to get a little insight to how Eric is doing his Zwifting. We're talking about the update 1.44, bug fixes, what's been low-hanging fruit, what we'd like to also see worked on in that area. Zwift Play and Steering. We haven't had Eric on since Zwift Play and Steering has gotten released into the wild. And so Eric's been putting on with Zwift Insider some steering only races as well. So that's going to be an interesting one. Eric recently put out a XP farming article, which is interesting, directly connected to the climb portals. And also, what is a mega ride on bomb? Those are the upfront little topics. The big topic of the day, though, is going to be the Tour de France Femmes Avec Zwift. We're going to be chatting all things Tour de France Femmes, get a good overview of what's going on, what's our favorite picks for the riders, etc., etc. So stick around for that as well. And of course, we've got our jersey pick and our garage pick. And Eric was nice enough to send along some pictures of his awesome kit. I'm not sure he knew that those pictures were going into the
Maybe not
into the live broadcast. Our amazing graphic artist, GG, as Eric calls her, Gabriella Guerra, suddenly sent them back over to me after they were DM'd. Hey, this should be the garage pick. And then, bam, there's this awesome, cool graphic put together for Zwift Insider in real life kick, which is an awesome in real life kick. But let's get right on with it here. Chat, we will be watching. So if we are live again, YouTube and Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, we'll be watching for all your comments as they do come through to interact with you. So let's go with you first, Eric. What have you been up to for last week in relationship to Zwift or cycling in general?
uh I have a weird cycling season, and I'm assuming other Zwifters can relate, where cycling used to be you had your outdoor race season and that was like your peak, and then winter was like where you rebuilt and kind of chilled and did a lot of zone 2 stuff. And for me it's flipped, where winter is like that's my peak of fitness, where I'm hammering it in ZRL, and summer is like, oh cool, I'm gonna chill and just do some outdoor rides, hang out on the mountain bike. So that's kind of what I feel like. I finished the Build Me Up program a few weeks ago now, I don't know, a month ago, which just kicked my butt, and ever since then I've just been enjoying being on my bike. So last week I was actually up in Bend, Oregon, camping, and I was mountain biking with my brothers-in-law, just off the backside of Mount Bachelor. There's some amazing stuff down there. There's big downhill routes that I have no business riding because I am not a downhiller, but just tons of fun trails. And then yeah, riding outside here too, but also doing a fair, like my harder efforts are on Zwift typically. Like I'll race once or twice a week on Zwift, and then I'll enjoy myself outdoors
That's interesting. I
before it gets too hot.
definitely,
So.
I can, I can see how that would happen because I have a scheduled race season in real life. That has driven me definitely to be doing a lot more high intensity and like the stuff that might burn you out or or have you in this mode of like, okay, I gotta go after it, and like adrenaline rushing, and it can only last for so
Yeah,
long in some ways, and then you need a break,
yeah,
like you were saying.
yeah.
And
You can't do that forever.
yeah, and I think some people are finding that are both like they sneak in these little like rest windows in like maybe the middle of April and like late August,
Yeah.
September, and it's like, how do you sneak that in? But I was wondering with the Build Me Up program, did you see I know you did that as like a goal to get some gains, like in these like fun rides you're doing outside, or like has it transferred into anything for you? Did you see something from Build Me Up?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I tested my FTP before and after, and it went up. It was, I mean, I would guess it was somewhere around a 5% improvement, but it's
Really?
not an FTP. Yeah, yeah, but that comes with a bit of an asterisk because at the start of the program they have you do the ramp test, and at the end of the program they have you do the 20-minute test.
Ah, so they assume at the
That's
beginning that you're kind of like not ready for a full gas FTP test, but at the same time,
yeah,
the regular FTP test tends to be more accurate than the ramp test.
exactly.
So they
But
kind
and
of
at the
they kind
same
of like
time,
sell you a bill of goods almost. That's kind of like, hey, use this one, and then like we'll pull the rug out from under you and be like, look, use this one. See, it's increased because you're
it's
almost always gonna get an increase, or who knows?
well, that's the weird thing. I mean, for me, the ramp test overstates my power, I think.
Hmm.
Like, as
Hmm.
someone, if you're more anaerobic, more of a sprinter, I
Yeah,
think the
that's
ramp
true.
test
Yeah.
overstates. So actually, I think Zwift is doing themselves a bit of a disservice, because if you do just those two tests before and after, you end up thinking you didn't make any gains at all. Uh, I mean, I think some people will. For me, actually, when I did those two tests, it showed I got the exact same result with the 20-minute test at the end of the program as I got with the ramp test at the start,
Hmm.
because my ramp test overstated my power.
Gotcha.
Then I did a ramp test at the end a few days
Hmm.
after the 20-minute test, and it was like 10 or 15 watts higher than it was at the start. So when I compared apples to apples, it went up. So it's a weird way for Zwift to do it. I think I understand why they did, but I'm not sure that was the best decision. Anyway, yeah, I
You
think
just
that's
were all
my
about the
summary.
tests, man. That sounds like
Yeah.
that
Well, I
program made
wanted.
you do.
I was documenting everything, so I
Yeah,
thought. I mean,
yeah. So
people
you're
are
like,
gonna
this
like.
isn't right.
You want to
Oh
know what the
shoot, I
result
gotta
is.
find a way to get the real result. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes a lot of
exactly.
sense.
But
Huh,
I think
interesting.
it. I think it taught. It gave me better power in like the 5 to 10 minute range, as well. It definitely doesn't train like sprint power or even 1 second power. I think it's more like VO2 up to FTP, kind of that range. And I definitely sense a boost there, and it just taught me how to suffer, dude.
The Build Me Up
Because I
program, really?
Yeah, because I set my FTP based on the ramp test, which overstated my power, I believe. I think it was overstated by probably 5 or 10 watts. I
Ooh.
kept it there, and then I did the whole program that way because I wanted to follow Zwift's the training plan as it was laid out, just kind of as like a guinea pig. And dude, there were so many workouts where I was just like, I can't do this. I'm right on the edge,
Hmm.
but it taught me to keep pushing, taught me to dig deeper than I had before in a training plan. So it was good.
I think that's a good aim. Well, we're going off on. I like it, but see, this is what
We are,
happens when
we
we get
are.
Eric. This is what happens when we get Eric
Sorry,
on, though.
sorry.
No, this is perfect. Actually, the Zwift Insider effect just does opens up all of these boxes that nobody even knew existed until we bring them to there. Like, okay, well,
Yeah,
all right. So, um, on that front, that is interesting, though. On the that you called out what it's specifically working on, because I think for the general Zwift or the Build Me Up, you're gonna get the most sight as far because fitness is like this imaginary. It's not imaginary; it's a real thing in your body. But like finding it, like here, I'm gonna draw a picture of a star. There's the star. You're like, but like, where's my fitness? You know, and so to be able to identify those things can be kind of like elusive for somebody.
yeah.
And I
It's not
think the
easy to do.
easiest identifiables though are VO2 and threshold. So it would make sense. Like, hey, these are really
Yeah,
easily identifiable. They're going to help you the most as a cyclist generally overall across everything. So that makes the most sense to work on those. Um, okay, so what have I been up to? I mid season I did Toad for those who've been watching the broadcasts and hanging out with the rap. I did Toad at the end of June, which is Tour of America's Dairyland, a professional 11-day stage race. I actually gained a ton of high end what you're talking about before sprinter, like out of the corner fitness, but lost a pretty good amount, I think. Not lost, like it was also my peak, so you're supposed to be kind of resting like you're supposed to be, losing fitness in quotes. And it was funny at my last race, I had this guy on course, bless his heart, man. This guy was so awesome. He was at Tour of America's Dairyland, and then he was at my next mountain bike race, and he's on the course. And to give you an idea of like where I was at in my training and my season this year, I am getting to Zwift stuff, but he's sitting there and he was at Toad and he was the course marshal. Tour of America's Dairyland, put it in you. It made it. You can do it. I saw you at that thing. And I know the whole time all I'm thinking while I'm going is like, yeah, I actually lost my mountain bike fitness because I did that. Yeah, okay, buddy. But he's encouraged me with this thing. And I'm in second place chasing first place. And it's this hardcore battle at the last mountain bike race I did. And I ended up taking second. And so... And the whole time I'm thinking, no, that's not what's happening. I'm thinking Toad and the crit racing actually took away from my ability to suffer straight for 2 hours at like an above threshold level. But sure, I can come out of corners really strong. But anyways, because of that, it is a part of the plan. But that kind of almost encouraged it more to take a rest week. I was done. I didn't want to touch my bike. And then after that, last week, I was like, time to relay a base layer. So now for the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to be doing big hours and a descending hour. So usually people do like a increasing hours all the way to the final block, but we're doing it like kind of the opposite way because we're looking to peaks because it's a mid-season rebuild. So because of the mid-season rebuild, we're like going up really, really high and then slowly coming down because we have races in the middle of this block too. So it's like every other. So it's like intensity 1 week, big base next week. All that to be said, last week, during the summers, I used Zwift mainly when there's lots of kiddos' responsibilities. So, we went out and did, I think, by Thursday, we had 17 hours in and had done some huge rides outdoors, but then it was kiddos' responsibilities all weekend. So, I think I raced your tiny races on Friday, and then and that starts at 3 or 4 p.m. my time, and I raced until 8 p.m. though. So, it was tiny race. I put every race that was on the hour for the next 4 hours on the docket. I saw that. Just kept going.
You won the tiny races, and then I'm like, wait a sec, he's doing more races. How many races is he doing?
Yeah. So, it's really motivating to keep me on the bike.
Yeah, for sure.
And if I've already put a lot of the zone 2 work in throughout the week, and I'm trying to do some of that middle power with little kicks, because if you ever see somebody write a base 3, your final base layer of a build into a season, right? And so you've kind of usually the way the old school talking was always base, build, peak, race. That's kind of the 4 ways that it gets organized. And essentially you're doing massive hours with little throw-ins of zone 3, zone 4, and punches into zone 5 and 6 in your final. So it's essentially I can go hang out on London Classic and do little sprints and kicks off the front and then go sit in. And if you just focus on sitting in a lot through some of these races that are, that might not be quite as much climbing. The Surrey Hills I did on Saturday, though, in Chasing Tour, definitely was a full VO2 max. But it was the last race, so I justified it. It was I'm done for the day. Let's just go do this. So it was a good day. So that's what I've been up to. But all right, so moving on. Bug fixes and 1.44. So it sounds like you did do an article on this over on Zwift Insider. Version 1.44, if you didn't realize, has been released. Update your Zwifts if you want these bug fixes. And, it wasn't just bug fixes, though. There is something that was new, that was added. And I guess you could call, if you want to call it a bug, but it's not necessarily a bug. But the entirety of Watopia had a pretty cool update to look more seamless and take away those gaps. And so there's been some graphical enhancements, it seems like to me.
Yeah, hopefully less of the a lot of times, well, in all the worlds, but you'll turn a corner and your wheels sink into the asphalt. Hopefully there's less of that. I always feel like I slow down right there. I think what's happening is they're looking to clean up Watopia and kind of give it a full visual upgrade, which hasn't happened yet. But I think they're cleaning up the roads a little, and then they're going to clean up some more of the environmental visuals in the coming weeks or months. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Which will be cool. Little visual upgrades are nice.
That could be really cool. I actually felt like I noticed that things looked a little different on broadcast the other day.
Yeah,
So
it's possible. Sometimes they do little things and they don't tell us. You're like, how long has that painting been there on the side of that building?
yeah, I mean, what's going on here? Are we not the guardians of whether things happen? Okay.
I know. If we don't know, then who does? That's funny. Yeah, a lot
Uh,
of bug fixes though.
What's your
It's
favorite? Like, or you don't have to pick one, but maybe name a couple that you felt like were really important to you or to the community.
uh, one of them was and it's just a real simple thing, but they rolled out the climb portal and they didn't label your activities as with the climb name that you did, which is super goofy. So like you would save it and it would just say you did the climb portal in Watopia. It's like, well, which climb did I do? I have no idea. You had to look at like the Strava the Strava segment in your activity to figure out which climb you did, because nobody looks at the climb outline and goes, oh, that's Tourmalet, that's Côte de Pique or whatever. So uh, that's one little one. I'm just looking at the list here. Oh, there's another one which I haven't tested it thoroughly to fix, but I'm hoping that it's completely fixed, and that is when you have steering enabled and you're in a tightly packed group, it would swerve you out to the side just randomly, and it was super annoying when you're in a race. And supposedly that's fixed. I know Contact Within Zwift told me it was fixed in this update, and they kind of alluded to it, although they didn't say it specifically in these notes. Yeah, hopefully that's fixed, because that to me is a huge. If they're trying to get people to get into steering on races, they need to not have your rider randomly swerve out of the draft so that you have to steer back in. I've got like 5 different race videos up on YouTube where I'm like, I gotta steer back in. Drives you
And
crazy.
I think there was a little bit of I don't know if anybody was really being critical, but it was like, well, Zwift just did bug fixes, and that's all there is. And I mean, at the same time, there's the reality that like if you get something like a Zwift Play and then it like wrecks your entire experience, like, well, then that almost would be like a platform ending for you, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like I can't
Yeah,
even
you
use
gotta
this
fix
thing.
that stuff.
So like things that are these are super important actually for quality of life, because it is the little things in some ways that can add up to being like, oh, this is just annoying. Like
Well, and there's always every update that comes out, I see comments that said, "Stop adding new things and just fix the bugs." There's always
those
always people
comments,
commenting that.
those
Yeah.
comments.
So I was waiting with this update to see comments like, "Man, all you're doing is fixing bugs. Where are the new features?" Because you get both sides. But so far, I think people have been pretty quiet, which is nice.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to remember that they're doing it. They're releasing every 2 weeks now instead of every like 4 to 5. So
That's a pretty
having an
update deal
here and
if
there
you've been around for a
yeah,
while. If you've been around
yeah,
for
it
a
is.
while, you did like the 2 weeks
They've more
versus
than doubled their update cadence. So I don't think it's too crazy to think, oh, maybe there will be an update here and there that's just a bunch of small stuff and bugs, and that's okay, especially in the middle of summer when half of Zwift HQ is just out riding their bikes in Long Beach instead of actually building the game.
I'm
You can't
getting
blame them.
some
Weather's
comments
great.
coming through about the bug fixes. Aaron Bleakley says that it's more important than the new stuff. Actually, GG in chat is talking about it happening to her as well with the play, so she's probably pretty excited if that is changed up. So okay, that gives us then a segue into play and steering. We haven't had you on the program since Zwift Play went into the wild, as well as steering them being more prevalent. One thing that comes up a lot during broadcast, I just want to clarify, is that Zwift Play did not unlock steering, for those that may not know that.
Yes.
Because I mentioned, and I purposely do this a lot, like during the broadcast, I say steering. I don't say Zwift Play is happening. Look, right there, there's an Elite Sturzo. So I don't know if that's a relic now. Is that what?
Kind of. It still works. The batteries, I had it powered up yesterday.
So
yeah, what was the first steering on? It was with the phone. Remember that?
it was with the phone. Did they turn
yeah,
off
you
the
mounted it on your
gyroscope
handlebars?
steering?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think there's any way to do it now, which is
Okay.
kind of goofy. I think they should make it an option, but they could always bring it back.
Yeah, to try, and I think your idea there was to like maybe somebody wants to try this in a way that isn't quite that great, and it will make it like a cool idea to be like, oh, maybe I want an actual steering product and
Yeah.
not have to like fully commit to a purchase to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay,
So steering.
yeah. What's your take right now on Zwift Play, and then also right away you were launching Zwift Insider steering only events, and I think that was pretty attractive up front. But do they still have a good participation?
Yeah, they really don't. So okay, so two things. My overall takeaway for steering, well, for play, would be, uh, I I see two really good things about it. One, and maybe this is the biggest one, is having being able to interact with the game just using your thumbs is really great. And once you've done it for a while, it starts to feel really clunky doing it any other way. Like even with a keyboard right in front of you, which is what I've done for years on Zwift. It's just really nice having it right there. And I have a great PC based setup with a table and everything. I can't imagine, if you're on Apple TV or you're one of those poor folks with a laptop that's just out of arm's reach, if you already have some pain points when it comes to interacting with Zwift in game, to me, it just feels like a no-brainer to get these just so you can move around with the buttons, even if you don't steer at all. Just having those buttons is great. Then the other side would be the steering side. And I like the steering side. I think for racing, it definitely adds a whole nother element. We did the steering only races. We only did them for 4 weeks. Just did like four sets of races. And yeah, they kind of like the first 2 weeks, they were decently popular. We had packs of 20, 30 riders, but then the last 2 weeks, it was like nobody showed up. It was like 5 riders. It was really weird. So I don't know how to explain that. I didn't see really any bad feedback. People seemed to like it, and it was a totally different race experience when everybody can steer. You'd see people setting up into the corners. The finishing sprints were way more cagey, and people are swerving onto wheels and swerving to shake people off their wheels. And there's just a lot more of that. I thought it was really cool. This week, actually, a couple days ago, I joined. It's the Z Racing race for this week, which is on the Mech Isle Loop, which is actually really good
loop.
for.
It's like not quite a crit, but like almost like a circuit race.
It's a circuit, yeah, and it's 5 laps of that. So you do that climb, that dirt climb 5 times. Great loop for steering, actually, because that climb you can actually really strategically steer on it. I made the mistake of going into the race without having my play stuff paired because I'd been messing around with my computer, and I thought, I'll just race it without steering. It's been a few weeks since I've done it without steering. I get in there, and like the 2 or 3 strongest riders who are on gravel bikes all have steering. And we start attacking that climb.
They had the setup for that race specifically. And they had gravel bikes. So on that climb, oh man.
We would hit the dirt, they would attack and swerve to the side. So I'd have to attack to follow them, but I'm in the middle of the flipping road with no draft, and they're drafting off each other going down the side. And then they would hit that climb, which is just a continuous left-hand curve. And they would take the inside so that they had a shorter ride. And I couldn't get on their wheel there either. And it just killed me, psychologically. You're like, oh, I got to get over there. So really interesting, because it used to be you just never saw steering in races, mostly because it was outlawed, because Zwift shot themselves in the foot by launching steering and then saying you can't steer in any events. It was just the strangest decision ever. But now that steering is allowed everywhere, and a lot of people have play or other steering devices, but I think it's mostly play. You're seeing it in races, and you really see it being used strategically by just the 1, 2, 3 riders who have it. You start seeing them, if they're strong, you start seeing them do stuff. Like, oh, okay.
That brings me back to should we unlock the ability to use the phone in order to encourage people to get the experience a little bit? Don't really do a whole lot of dev around it, and then like because one thing that a lot of people I've seen, not a lot of people, I thought there were going to be a lot more pitchforks on this issue. I honestly thought there was going to be people at the gates a little bit more than I am seeing. There's a little bit of chatter about like, hey, not all of us have an opportunity to have steering. Is this a pay to win? Is this a, I got to get this device in order to be, competitive? And you just highlighted a moment where you didn't have steering and they had what seemed to be an advantage in the race. First of all, like, what do you think about that? And then, like, second of all, it seems like we have the opportunity, like, everybody's got a phone. So, like, if we open that up, maybe that, it's not good steering, maybe, but at least it's something. And then it gives the feeling of, like, okay, well, I can kind of move around here and there and do what I need to be able to interact with the rest of this race here. Because then I think if that access is there, there's another side to that too. So there's a third thing here that's like, it, like you said, changes the race. And right now we have like a half change race or a quarter changed race. Like these three people have something that they can interact with and go do something that the rest of the pack can't do. So the whole race kind of becomes like, these are stationary, like herded people. And then these people are free to go, wow, all over the place.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I do think there's a bit of it does feel like a pay to play thing. I do think having the phone I think it's a good option. It was a little bit hinky, I think, using the phone. Remember when they released steering on the phone, and then within a few weeks, everyone was going, here's how to build a device to go under your front wheels so that you can actually turn your. So there was that part where most people just have their front wheel locked in, and it doesn't work great with phone steering. You could go maybe the RGT route where they have the tray thing and you can kind of steer with your fingers. Bleakley's actually referencing that in comments. So maybe there's maybe there's some other way to do cheap steering. But I mean, at the same time, you got to say, if steering matters, you have to find a way to move it forward. And you're gonna get complaints like, "Hey, this is pay to play," but Zwift is pay to play. You have to pay to get on Zwift, so it's not that everything has to be free all the time. Cycling
agreed.
is far from a cheap sport. So
I agree with that too. Like that's a really good point. At some and I don't want to just like make that a side comment. I think that's the main comment, what you just said, to be honest, on the whole thing. At a certain point, you have to move things forward. And so I think that and some people be like, we don't need to move forward. That would be their thing then. And I'm like, I don't know. This seems very interactive. And like a lot of people seem to be not just enjoying it, but it does, in my opinion, it has to enhance the experience. I am seeing one other comment coming through here. And this one was like, figuring out how to sprint with plays was interesting because I ended up, and this was one of my first concerns, but I figured it out. I just had to adjust a little bit, but I did brake a little bit in the tiny races on accident. Like I definitely, because the braking and the steering are literally on the same pad. Come on, like what? And like, and you're in the drops and you're like trying and you're full. I mean, like you're doing 800, like whatever watts is your sprint. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, why are the brakes on the same thing that I'm trying to steer when I'm going full gas? Like just a little tap and you're going backwards in a sprint. Like what? Like, so that one, I said that one early on, like really early on when we were doing some testing. I was like, you guys, this is really scary. Like, but I have a feeling, I don't know, like how many of the devs are doing full gas sprints while they're trying to steer? I don't know. Maybe they were like, oh yeah, it'll be fine, whatever. I'm not sure. Like, so, but I definitely felt a little bit. And then what do you think about customization? Like being able to customize these things for the buttons? Like I've been hearing quite a bit of people. I feel like I've heard quite a bit of like, hey, why can't I just customize this?
I think it'd be cool. I mean, we've been talking for years about how it would be nice to be able to customize Zwift's UI overall. Being able to customize the buttons. There's the little side buttons that are just on the side of the orange paddles that aren't really used in free riding. What could I do with those? I'd love to have a camera button that just activates the camera when I hit it.
You mean these little ones next to the? You're talking about these ones?
Yeah.
These ones right here. This button.
Yeah.
Next to the steering, so there's a little black button that some people don't even know it's there. It's so like quiet that it's there.
It's not really used. I think it's used
workouts, right? In workout mode, right? So you can
changes your FTP bias.
Decrease. Yeah. So that would be a great place to put the brake. Actually, I want the brake there. I don't know what would I do that. What would I do with the push in? I have to think about that.
Or even a disable the brake sort of a thing. It's like, hey, I will never use the brakes, so can I just turn them off? Sort of a thing. It's like just taking them off your bike.
I don't need no brakes.
I don't need brakes.
I don't need brakes on my bike. Who needs brakes?
I'm on a fixie. I'm a track cyclist. There's a couple other comments.
When I first started using them, I actually naturally, this is how I thought they were going to work, that I would push. So if you're watching the broadcast, I would push left with both of them, and I would push right with both of them at the same time. I wouldn't just use one side. I just, for some reason in my head, because I steer with both of my hands when I'm steering outside, I think I naturally thought like, oh, I push them both one way and I push them both another way, and that maybe pushing both of them does like more steer. I don't know, like that was my intuition. And then all of a sudden I'm braking and steering. I was like, oh, that's not how this works. What does me pushing them in do? I was really confused actually at first.
Braking is going to be interesting. I want Zwift. I would love Zwift to roll it out like in Crit City, to roll out auto braking on the turns and make it so that if you brake smartly, you have an advantage. I think that's going to change racing completely too, where every sharp corner has a maximum speed that you can enter it in, and if you don't hit your brakes to take your speed down, the game's going to do it for you. So you can either control your speed, slow yourself down, or the game's going to do it for you, and it's probably not going to be quite optimal. And that would just totally change the feel of those crits, where you're actually having to jump out of the corners, just like Tour of America's Dairyland.
So that's where feel. I think we're going to hit a level of interaction with the game that's going to need more communication through graphical communications. So, but I want to keep graphical communications really simple and not complicated in the way I'm describing this. Just think white and black chess pieces, and I know what the white chess piece is. I know what the black chess piece is, and then I interact with them. So like that's a very simple gamification. Okay, like here's pieces. Hey, let's create a game. These ones are white and these ones are black, and you can do things with the white ones and you can do things with the black ones. Did you like, and just like when I use the word gamification, I'm going to always go back to that example so that people don't go Mario Kart and bananas and I'm like, that's not like, sure, we can do that, but I'm not talking about that all the time. And I think that graphical communication through colors and ways in which like you've got to aim for an area or something, or like there just needs to be something coming back as feedback that lets you know if you're braking enough or not enough. Maybe for each and every individual avatar going into corners, maybe not everybody sees it or something, because otherwise like, and this is something that why Zwift Sauce does so well is because it tells you about some interaction that you kind of need to know to interact with the game well, like in some ways. And I think it'd be even cooler if it wasn't a draft percentage. I think it'd be cool if it was graphically in some sort of way communicated that you're getting better or worse draft in a very subtle, immersive way, right? Like that makes it a gamified immersion, that it's something you can't necessarily do in real life, but you feel it in real life. So let's make you get a feeling with it with some sort of graphic communication. So that's one thing with, I think as we get more interactive with the game with these controllers, we're going to have to see more of what we see in traditional gaming when it comes to the communication of like how these interactions are happening, and not just kind of like guessing, because like we want to do it right. Like we want to be able to do it the best, Yeah.
And with the braking, I've seen some stuff leaked, and I don't know if this is what Zwift actually is going to launch with, but there was an Alpta Zwift, some images with Alpta Zwift where as you were entering the corner, it showed a path ahead of your rider that was red if you were going too fast. Yep. And then if you slowed down, it would turn green once you hit a low enough speed. And I think that's probably what you need, right? That's it showed you how to negotiate the turn, and it showed you if you were going too fast. So if you were steering, okay, slow down. And
nice.
Anyway, we'll see though. Basically nobody has experienced what it would be like to race
a
crit with braking. So
but that changes everything. The crit racing, I mean, the jumping out of corners type of racing thing over and over again on the right kind of course, that'd be really exciting. And then trying to dive a corner first, and you can't take up the same space, but you don't have to crash with your elbows and go to the hospital. Like, let's do it. I'm so excited.
Glory. We can be safe.
You can save crit racing. We don't have to have. I mean, we'll still have crit beef. We'll still have drama, but it'll be a different kind. It'll be more like Z power, and it'll be then instead of us killing each other with elbows. So,
I saw a comment by Zwifty Zwifter mentioning why not keyboard steering. I think that's another option too. Just let people use arrows on their keyboard. Why not? Another free way to do it. Just say, look, this isn't intuitive. Clearly, you're going to have to reach over to your keyboard and do it, but you can at least experience steering. Yeah, I'd support that.
I think the more experience of steering right now, the better. Like the better, and it'll actually, when it comes to selling Zwift plays, I think it'll get more Zwift plays in the wild because people experience it at a level that's not great, but it'll definitely at least get a little bit of a toe dip into what that's all about. So. There was one other thing that I completely forgot. Okay, we'll go on. All right, farming XP. This is an interesting one and this is always a hot topic. Like, I've noticed that for those who are level 60 and don't need any XP, like, you just kind of forget that XP is even a thing. But anyone who's trying to, like, if you're a level 15 Zwifter and there's 60 levels ahead of you and all this stuff to unlock, this and the Tron bike, like all, there's just all this like, I can unlock all this stuff. And there's a lot of motivation to keep riding your bike, which is pretty cool. In the back of my head on this one specifically, I feel like you've got to be pretty committed if this is all you're going to be doing to just I just want to be level 60 and that's all I care about. Because that's a pretty long grind. But at the same time, if you've been around the podcast long enough or even Zwiftcast, etc., you've heard me say the idea of farming boars in Azeroth. I mean, there's in World of Warcraft, there are people who literally just sit around and going at like farming, just the grind, and go after the grind. And I mean, I think cycling is even a little bit more toward the grind in some ways, because it's work, you get a workout. But go ahead, the farming XP, you found this in the climbing portal.
Yeah. So basically the idea is when Zwift rolled out the portal, they decided that while you're in the portal on a portal climb, you're only going to get, they restricted the power-ups to what they called useful power-ups, which for them was a feather because you're climbing, and then the small and large XP bonuses. So those are the only power-ups. I like how you put that in quotes.
I like how you put the useful power-ups in quotes.
Well, because there's flat sections, there's people trying to get their 100 kilometers per hour badge.
I just want to know who thinks that out of all the power-ups that anyone in the entirety of Zwift history thought that experience was a useful power-up.
Especially the plus 10
most comments and most people I think that the experience is the least useful power-up, especially in interaction with a climb. So
yes.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, those are the only 3 power-ups. And they're given in my tests, but people are coming back to me with lots of different results. But I went through 100 different arches in the climb portal, and I recorded what they gave out to try to figure out the percentages. And mine showed 20% for feather and the big XP, which is what you want, the 250 XP. So 20% for each of those. And then the remaining 60% was the small XP bonus, just 10 XP. So if you work it out on a 10, every climb in the portal is divided programmatically into 10 equidistant sections. So if you have a 10-kilometer climb, each section is going to be 1 kilometer. If you have a 20-kilometer climb, each section is going to be 2 kilometers. And each of those sections has an arch, a power-up arch. So every time you go through, you're going to go through 10 arches every climb you do, whether it's a 3-kilometer climb or a 20-kilometer climb. You're going to go through 10 arches, and you're going to get a power-up at every arch. So if you do the math, what it works out to, if you're doing a shorter climb, you can get a whole lot of XP because you're getting that 250 XP bonus every 5th arch. So on average, twice for every climb you do. And if you do one of the short climbs,
like short climbs that are Côte de
3
Pike,
kilometers.
Yeah, the Pike, or Pique, I think they say call it Pique. That one is
it's less than 3 kilometers,
right? Yeah. So,
yeah, it's the shortest. And there's another that's like right around 3, and I think another that's 4.
I think you can get that one done in 10 minutes. Maybe
right around
there. Yeah, like
yeah. So if I worked it out, and the math I got was you'd be getting somewhere around, I think, 2,500 XP in an hour of riding, which is easily double what you can get anywhere else in Zwift. Now that's just going up and then descending down. People are getting even trickier, and I tested this, and I was going to publish it, but I didn't because I thought it was just too cheeky. But people commented immediately on my post about how you can on your way down, you can flip U-turns and ride back through the arches and get power-ups.
Boom, boom, boom. Just flip it.
You just can't ride through the same arch twice in a row. So
on the way down. Okay,
down.
so like you can't just ride through it again right away. You have to go to the top, and then on the way down, you can hit each one on the way down though.
Yeah. So you can get a lot more that way. And then the other way, the highest number I've seen yet is from Scott.
This Zwift,
isn't it crazy? It's great.
Climb portal
Scott
hack.
over at the KOM Hunt TV guy. He got over 10,000 XP in 2 hours. So he was over 5,000 XP an hour. And all he did was he went to Côte de Pique and just went through the first 3 arches, turned around, went out, and went back in, and just did that repeatedly. And that's a flat section. It's at the bottom.
That's the one I saw. That's the one I saw that I was like, you got to be pretty motivated for XP if this is all you're doing. But I mean, if you're looking for some sort of
that's a crazy
unlock,
number of XP. I mean, I don't
know. How much is a level? How much is how much is
I think
the
level? High levels are like 20,000 XP. So that's a lot. I mean, in 2 hours to get half a level.
Whoa.
I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty sure.
I mean, because doing the high levels took days. I mean, it took me a week sometimes to, and I'm riding a lot. I mean, I'm doing base in the middle of winter, trying to hit level 60, and I get double XP from my old stuff, and it still took me like half a week of riding. Yeah,
it's 20,000 XP. 20,000 XP for that starts at I don't know, maybe level.
We might have just screwed this up for everybody.
Probably level 37 is where it starts to be 20,000 XP.
Now that we put it out there, and it's to be like, wait a second, listen to those guys over there. I don't know if we want this like this. Like, shut up, Nathan. Shut up, Eric. You're screwing it up for everyone.
Here's what I didn't mention in the post, and that
now you're getting all the top secret stuff now.
Yeah, this is the secret stuff. It's really going to be dependent. Once July ends, Zwift is going to a different schedule, right? You're not going to be able to just pick whatever climb you want. Mm-hmm. So, and what they told us was it's going to be everyone's going to be on the same climb for 2 weeks straight, and then it's going to go to another climb. And those are the only climbs you're going to have access to. So unless Zwift decides to change that, which I think they should, I think that's a silly plan to have just one climb for every 2 weeks. I mean, people want to be able to try out different climbs. But if they decide to do that, you'll have like an XP farming double week. Like when they feature Côte de Pique, everyone's going to go, yeah, we got 2 weeks of 5,000 XP per hour.
Well, that's not the worst like marketing plan too, though, that like if they just embrace it, you know what I mean? And like you're looking for that workout and that double XP, go check out Zwift Insider's article and hit the Côte de Pique. I mean, that's a great... Not bad.
Yeah.
That got a lot of comments, actually. 42 comments on that article. There's a lot of interaction over there. People are all about the XP.
People want their XP. And I would, let's just throw in for us level 60 Zwifters that I sure would love a level 61 so that I would care about XP again. Wouldn't you like that, Nathan?
I'd like a level 100.
I'd like to have levels that nobody has reached and something that I can work towards, because there's nothing in game.
Yeah, that is a thing.
Point.
We need things to chase a little bit. I think there's a lot of options on that front besides just levels. Like when you say levels, I both am like, that would be cool, and I sigh a little bit at the same time. Like where I'm kind of like, yeah, I've done the level thing before. Can I go like on an adventure in some sort of way, or like I don't know, if I go and do this kind of racing. Okay. So we're going to get mega ride-on bombs. There is one other topic I do want to bring up with race ranking. I'm going to throw in this one on you without it being in the show notes, and then we'll talk Tour de France Femmes. So what is a mega ride-on bomb? For those, and this was actually a little bit educational for me, because I didn't really understand actually how ride-ons were working either. Like, because there isn't anything telling you how many ride-ons are going to other people. You just are like, well, I sent a ride-on bomb. It exploded. Like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, and then you're like, I didn't read the Zwift Insider article. I don't know. Like, I don't know what color the chess pieces are to kind of throw that one out there. So
the ride-on bomb is just simply a way to hand out twice as many ride-ons. The ride-on bomb is handing out 5 ride-ons to the 5 nearest riders while you're riding in game. 5 nearest
that
riders
was the revelation for me.
Haven't given.
That was the revelation to me. Was the
that's
5.
What a ride-on bomb.
I was like, what? I thought I was just giving a bomb to like everybody.
And that's always been done just through the companion. You just tap your arrow on there, and it does it, and then it spins up a timer for maybe 8 seconds, and then you can do it again, and just keep handing out 5 ride-ons to the nearest riders. The mega ride-on bomb that I just wrote a post about was doubling up your companion app with the ride-on bomb button that's in the play controller, which also does the same thing. It does 5 ride-ons to your nearest riders.
Z,
but it's a
little Z here does that. Z. Yeah, if you hold that,
it's on
down.
A slightly shorter timer, I think, but you can tap them both and give 10 ride-ons right away. Then Nathan, you suggested taking it next level. And when somebody nearby gives you one, you can tap it, give them one, and then do the mega. So that's 11.
Do the mega. That's
goes
like
to 11.
I don't know if that's. See, I wasn't gonna name that Uber because it's only one more. Like we need like a 15 or 20, so it couldn't be an Uber's, but it's like a mega plus. It's like a mega plus ride-on bomb. Because if you push, I don't think the coding does a reset if you push Z as a response. Because if you get a ride-on, it like triggers, you're like, oh, I can give ride-ons in your head, right? Like, so, and I was making the mistake of like holding down the button instead of just pushing the button. And then I was sending a bomb and I was like, oh shoot, I didn't send that person one back. But then I'm wondering, and I haven't tested this yet, like sometimes you can find little logic tricks in the coding around these things. Maybe somebody test this, or maybe go test a bunch of different ways to figure out ways that you can give as many ride-on bombs as you possibly can. And if you find a way to get something to reset within a 20-second time period or a 30-second time period or whatever it may be to get more than 11 ride-ons out to riders, let us know, and we'll name that the Uber ride-on bomb. Because I was thinking that, and I'm wondering if getting a ride-on and then responding to that with a press and then a hold, and then also doing the companion app one is 11, or can you do just a press? And if there's like some sort of logic going on that you can then use the ride-on bomb again really quickly. I felt like that was there, but I haven't tested it. And that would be 15 actually that you could do. Anyways, I wish there was is there a tracker about how many you've given? I think there is a tracker in some sort of, I know you can track how many you've gotten, but I don't know if you can track how many you've given in some sort of like data tracker. You know, they have a few of those out there that track those, and you can show them on your stream and all that. And I'm wondering if there's a way to track how many you've given and who you've given them to. Besides,
Zwift used to send out an email every week that said, here's how many ride-ons you gave. Yeah, I'd love to see
Well, I think that info, that data is probably wherever it's getting pulled from, because you can see see who you've given them to in the companion app on their rides. So it's there somewhere, but it might not be collated in relationship to your ID, to your Zwift ID, probably. So that would be because what you've gotten is attached to your Zwift ID in your companion app, obviously, because it shows you here's who all gave you your ride-ons, right? And it gives you a number.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
The data's there. It's just whether they're displaying
there.
It or not.
Yeah, displaying
they
it,
could,
and
they could
whether or not
certainly
they're
display
pulling
it.
it in somewhere. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that's what
Andrew
Mega Ride
Banky, Andrew Banky commented that doing the ride on bomb is kind of like shaking your Strava when you had your rider list up, and it would give everybody a kudos. Have you ever done that?
What?
Dude, that was the greatest. You did? Did you know that's a thing? You pull up. Is it still a thing, Andrew? I think it is, but I know that they had changed some stuff. But it used to be you could pull up a list of people of everyone that you rode with in a ride. So on Zwift, if you did like a big race, you might have 100 people on that list, and then you shake your phone on that list, and it would kudos everybody on the list.
Oh, interesting.
Which is
That's
pretty
kind of
cool.
like Strava Sauce, or there's also some other one that just like goes through and gives everybody ride-ons that you follow, so you look like you're actually interacting with people. Actually, one of my friends, big shout out to Allison Kubota, she was actually one of the first viewers ever of my Twitch stream. Like her
Allison's OG,
and Chris,
OG
OG as it gets. Like she actually, I think her and Chris Whittick got me through 6 months of streaming to no one except for them. I think that even DCL wouldn't exist without those people. But like, she actually is one of these total hackers, like to do things, and like has a ton of followers on Strava. And I was like, how did you do whatever? And she totally had this program that would go through the browser. Like if you just left your browser up, and it would like auto scroll to find everyone who's like a part of clubs for you that aren't your follow. You don't follow them. Like you actually don't follow them. So all of a sudden they're getting, well, guess what happens if you give people kudos? They go, oh, who are you? And then they come to you and they follow you and give you kudos. And so it was a perfect little hack of like reciprocation. Yeah. Anyways, when you're not actually reciprocating anything, it's a bot that's like messing around. Okay, I just gave everybody this awesome hack about to go find your Strava
You're
followers.
welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so last one, and then on to TDFF. So the race ranking. I want to know what you think right now about race ranking in general, and then the recently launched race ranking, because there's race ranking all over the place. For those that don't know, there's Zwift Racing app, right? There's Zwift Power. And there's race ranking in Zwift. Two of those places are Zwift owned places, and one is not. So I don't know. Maybe this is an article. Maybe I'm giving you like, hey, what's going on with ranking and how does it work and where's it at? But if you didn't know, ranking was recently released, not in 144, but 143, I believe it was. Or was it 142? I think it was 143.
I don't even think it was really part of a version. It was kind of outside of it. They just started displaying it on. They just started showing it on the web, basically.
So it's on the. Is it on the web? I thought it was also on your companion app, though, for sure.
It's on both.
Okay, gotcha. And so now we have race ranking, but it's only involved in the Zwift Racing series. If I'm not incorrect.
The Z Racing.
The Z Racing, it's used for. And I'm just wondering, like, I'm not sure many people know that it exists even.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think the real dedicated racers who follow the news know that it exists. But I think a lot of, even if you know it exists, it doesn't really matter right now, because Z Racing isn't using it to determine which category you're racing in. It's just Z Racing is being used to affect your racing score now. So not all races affect your Zwift. What do they call it? Zwift Racing Score is what it's called.
Yeah, it's racing
the only
score.
Races
My
that
fault.
affect
My
it are
bad.
the Z
Not
Racing.
ranking. It's racing score.
So yeah, it's a pretty limited sort of rollout, but I think it's just it's a first step for them, right?
Mm-hmm. See, my racer score is falling right now, but I'm racing a lot, but I'm not necessarily doing, and I'm like kind of like ouch. Like I started at 916, And now I'm a 788, but I raced my bike 8 races on Saturday and I gained Zwift power ranking. Like really, I'm top 100 or top 150 again, somewhere like that. And I'm really happy about that. But like that, like there's no reward unless I do a Z racing thing. So I'm kind of like, but I'm really happy about personally. Anyways, go on. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I just wanted to give some context to why I'm bringing this up.
Well, I love that that's happening to you, Nathan, because my Zwift racing score right now is 748. So basically, I'm nearly as strong of a rider as you. So that's great news.
It's working. It's all a plan.
It's working.
It's working. It's doing what it's supposed
Zwift's
to.
Racing score. Yeah, it works really well. Clearly.
Oh my god.
No, I think them having only the Z racing stuff feeding into it basically makes it kind of an invalid number at this point. And you're a great example of that. Like it's if only certain events feed into it, then it's not going to do much good. So that they need to figure out a way to incorporate more events. I've kind of purposely not like dived really deep into racer ranking algorithms and stuff on Zwift because it's this huge rabbit hole. And there are plenty of people who are putting a whole lot more thought into that. And I'm really good at outsourcing things and just being like, hey, look, you're an expert, you figure it out. But I do know that as soon as Zwift announced this, there was a lot of really smart people who were not happy with the algorithm they're using for Racer Score. And the arguments they're giving, I think, are valid and need to be heard by Zwift. So while I think that rolling out the Racer Score was a good first step, I think Zwift needs to look at the algorithm they're using for computing it, and they need to improve that algorithm. A lot of the work, I think, in doing the Racing Score stuff was just in updating the UI, adding it here and there, and the systems that are computing it, getting all those set up. So I can't help but think that tweaking the algorithm can't be super hard. Like that, it's not like they're having to rework everything. They're not having to reinvent something. It's just, and the algorithm's already, we already know like what the Zwift Racing app, how they do their algorithm. They would happily tell Zwift, here's exactly what we're doing. Please do it. So Zwift could do that. And I'm hoping they do.
The Zwift Racing app, though, I don't know. I haven't checked it out in a little while. I think finding the happy place, wherever that is, of having a good algorithm is a really good idea. And I think Zwift Racing app is probably really on top of that. I think that the original Zwift Power one was making a good shot at it. And now Zwift are trying to find that in between it all. Zwift, I remember though, like one of the things I was really excited about with Zwift Racing app was that, every race is going to count towards something, but I didn't understand what that meant when I said it. And then I'm like, wait, I can't race Zwift like I play Overwatch. Like I can't like I race and then I'm done for the day, or maybe I do 2 races and then I'm done for the day. And like I did whatever many races on Saturday, but like not like I'm doing it literally riding my bike like it's a job. You know what I mean? Like most people aren't going to have that ability. And so having something that's meaningful, you can't that you can kind of like grind, have that like XP grind or whatever it might be, that whole idea doesn't work quite as well. So I think it's a good point that I think is in the background of what you just said, that like what works best is still being discovered. And that that whatever that might be, maybe that has something to do with why we're not like seeing a full go at just releasing into the wild. But at the same time, I'm like, well, then why? This needs to be meaningful for me, and like let's just commit to something. Let's go. You know what I mean? And see what happens if we go for it.
Yeah.
Because you can always change it. Like I don't know. Like personally, I think like go for it and like see how it goes. And watch the rankings go this way or that way. And I think people want the racing score. I like the word ranking personally a lot, but I'm a very competitive individual, and maybe they don't want to have it such like you're ranked somewhere. But anyways.
Yeah, it's not an easy job because Zwift. I mean, clearly they need to do a racing score that is accessible to people, and that the beginner can understand. And Zwift has always tried to be very very accessible that way. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
ZwiftRacing.app I love, but it's like you go on there and you're like, whoa, it's overwhelming. And other attempts at ranking scores in the past have been overly complex. Do you remember when CVR came out with their ranking score?
I just remember it being like you couldn't understand what was going on. I remember
It
that.
was it was crazy. I spent a day reading the documentation trying to understand how they were computing it, and it was layers upon layers upon layers. And while it was super accurate, like I would say that every racer in there, like it was accurately saying you're this as a hill climber, you're this as a sprinter, and it was accurate that way. But if you needed to understand it or utilize it in any way, it was too complex
There's one thing I've
for a
seen
more casual
within
cyclist.
the gaming world, they never release how they do it. like
Yeah,
Apex and Overwatch, and they're just like, this is, we'll give you an idea of kind of how it works, but they never show like how they actually cook these brownies. Like they kind of like
yeah,
the ingredients.
and maybe that's how it should be. I don't know. That's because yeah, you do. It does have to be simple.
Yeah, at
And
least
other
for
people are saying
understanding.
racing scoring is different than race ranking, and there's yeah, it's a rabbit hole, my friend.
It is, but
A
I'm
deep
excited about
dark
it.
rabbit
The
hole.
reason I brought it up is because we didn't talk a ton about it, and I figured you'd have some opinions on it too. And you run races. Wondering if you'd like to see it on your races. I mean, I
Yeah,
hunt tiny races. I know Gabriella hunts tiny races because tiny races is
yeah. The
really
tiny races. I think a big reason why people aren't happy with Swift Power's ranking is because the tiny races kind of destroyed them, right? Like
mm,
it's it bumped the top ranked score down 20, 30 points because people are able to hop into four
boom.
competitive races on a Saturday. And yeah,
So
so
then you have
it's
to do those specific ones in order
yeah,
to get a good rank.
yeah, it kind of feels that way. And I mean, honestly, I kind of feel kind of bad about it, but at the same time, people are having fun with the races, and
Yeah, yeah.
I can't change the algorithm. So
Mm.
anyway, it is.
Needs
Yeah, I
attention.
think
It needs attention, and I think they are
it
giving it
does need.
attention. I think they are giving
Yeah,
it attention. So okay, so let's move on to. We've had a lot of main features. It seems like, but this is the big one for the month here. Obviously, Tour de France, Femmes, Avec, Zwift. It is coming at us real quickly. Now, you just recently did a article on a report that Zwift did with Nielsen Sports. I don't know much about Nielsen Sports, but it seems that they put together studies around sports data and the
yeah.
impact that the Tour de France Femmes Avec Zwift has had from being in existence. So, specifically looking at what the audience has been, it seems like it's more around viewership and interaction from the general public and who they are and getting demographics a little bit more around sports viewership. Is that really what it seems like that this is about?
Yeah, I think they were trying to define what the demographics of the viewers look like, and then how the last year's Femmes kind of bumped up the exposure, like social interaction, social media stuff, and viewership, even how what kind of a bump the big race had. And I think it's pretty compelling numbers. I mean, I think the graph I liked the most was they looked at female riders' social profiles and how many followers they had, and they graphed it. And during the month of, or during basically during the race, so the back half of July, the net increase was 8.6% in followers across all the like the pro female rider profile. So an 8.6 increase in followers just during the event. So that's great. I mean, that's exactly what they're shooting for. They're shooting for exposure, and if somebody follows you on social, that's that's ongoing exposure. That means they're linked to you and they're going to be seeing whatever you're doing moving forward, which is good.
Were there much comparisons in this to other sports, and also within racing within cycling?
I don't think so. I don't think I saw much about that. I'm popping around looking at the
Yeah.
report.
Okay. They did do some cool graphics here, though. I definitely want to bring these in.
Yeah, the graphics are great.
This one right here is really interesting. This will help. If you everybody can check this out. Go head on over to Zwift Insider and you can see the article that was put together. But just interesting stats here on who all watched. Women's cycling fans are on average 3.4 years younger than the general population, which is interesting. Women's cycling fans have a relatively equal gender split. 73% are interested in participating in sports and fitness. 50% agree that they are often the first person to have new innovative products. So they have a whole bunch of like cool little data. Women teams profile during the 2022 year in 2022. New followers up to 8.6%, as you can see, all during this month of July. And then it seemed to have like, look, there's a peak here. Do you see this? Like whoop up and then steady, like you said, all the way through. Yeah. So it's almost like it had this cool bump because of the Tour de France, but it was a staying power of these interactions. It seems like that actually, for those that are listening on a podcast, I'm showing a graphic that shows the month of July, a big increase in the interactions with the profiles of the teams and the women who are in the Tour de France during the month of July. And it seems directly correlated to the Tour de France, Femmes. And then from there, that increase like steadily holding and growing. So kind of cool.
There is one graphic that they had where it compared Femmes riders, their social profiles and the engagement rate on those profiles. It compared those to Tour de France riders, the men riders, and their engagement rates. And the Femmes were way higher across the board, which isn't super surprising since it was the first year for the Femmes, and but it I mean, it was significantly higher. Like on Insta, it says that the Tour de France profiles, the engagement rate bumped up 0.71% during the Tour de France. And for the Femmes, it bumped up 3.5%. So like 5x what the Tour de France got. So I don't know. It was an interesting report. And I think it's important to note that it's a long game. I've seen some complaints on Zwift Insider it might have even been commented on this post where people are saying, why is Zwift investing in this? Why can't they put money into the game? And some are going, well, they're trying to grow the sport over the long haul, and that's going to grow their business. And it is true. I mean, that's what Zwift has said they're trying to do, but that's a long play. And I think a brave play and a play that's honorable. But you don't see the payoff right away. It's gonna take a few years or more to see much of anything. And you see 12-year-old girls who are getting more interested in cycling, and they turn into 18-year-old girls who are riding. This kind of stuff takes time, and Zwift is just a small part of that, I think.
I think the attachment to the entire sector of cycling, though, and its growth and being a brand that's around that the entire time as this sector of the industry grows, both virtual cycling, women's cycling, I think that's a really smart play. I think there's a reason why Trek and Specialized are invested directly in NICA, because those kids, they may need bikes right now, but it's a lifelong interaction with cycling that's going to sell bikes in the long run, 10, 15 years, 20 years down the road as well, because it's an introduction of a sport at a really young age as your traditional sport. And cyclists tend to, once it's adopted, the shelf life of cycling is way longer than most traditional sports. You continue to participate in cycling way longer than most field sport. Almost any, I don't know. I'd like to see a study that shows what other sport has the longevity that cycling does.
Yeah.
As far as shelf life goes, I don't think that there's going to be one that can compete. That is an active physical go out and do something sport. So,
That's a good point.
And do something. Yeah. So,
go out and do something sport.
Go out and do something sport.
Those are the best kind of sports.
So my point being, though, that I think I see something else in the background too here about Zwift's brand being, I think it's a good bet. I think it's an amazing bet. First of all, just from an ethical standpoint, that I don't think they're doing this just for their bottom dollar, first and foremost.
Yeah.
But I also think that the relationship to a movement that everybody can kind of get behind, it seems like, in this kind of way that's super entertaining for people, is I see nothing but good coming around it, actually, for Zwift and being that force. I mean, this would not exist if it weren't for Zwift, and that's super obvious. And there's a reason why you see a lot of orange around this, right? Like when you think Tour de France Femmes, you can't not see orange. Like you know what I mean? And so that yellow and orange, when you think Tour de France, you think yellow, but now it's like the orange is next to it. And I think that's on purpose. Like, and I really think that is then going to have this staying power for people wanting to interact with Zwift as they become more and more cyclists. It's like, oh, this is just a part of what you do when you are a cyclist. You Zwift. So I think that idea is something that was really aimed at, I think, early on, is that like, well, this is a new genre within. That was always the conversation. Like, Zwifting's a new genre within cycling, and that's only going to increase that attitude, I think, by doing something like this, by partnering with a whole big sector of cycling that needs to grow and wants to grow and just needs that resources and energy put into it from a company that is also creating its own sector within the whole sport.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
But all right, so the teams and the riders, the routes. Oh my gosh, Anna put all this stuff in the that I'm like, oh my goodness, we're going over all the routes. Let's take a quick look here at them though. This is holy cow. So if you head on over to letourfems.fr, if you didn't know what this is going on, watch the Femmes. These are the routes. There's 8 stages. It starts on July 23rd, this Sunday. And
which is crazy because the Tour de France ends on Sunday. So the tour, can you imagine the logistics?
Up. You have to double up.
They're doubling up. Last year it ended and the first day was in Paris. So that made sense logistically, like everybody was in the same city. But this year it starts in a totally different place in France. That's a lot to bite off.
That is a lot to bite. Well, there's got to be just 2 separate like logistics organizations at this point. Yeah, for sure. Otherwise. So the first stage is going to be flat. Then we've got hilly, flat, mountain for 7, and an individual time trial at the end.
Those last 2 stages are the big ones for sure.
956K. Yeah, for sure. These are going to be big. Tourmalet, and then the individual time trial, 22.6K. So not super long. The usual, what we've seen nowadays. Yeah. The sprint stage, 1, 2, 3, 4 sprint stages. So that's really interesting. But in women's cycling, Eric, I feel like sprint stages can get blown up pretty quickly. I feel like that there isn't quite as much sitting around and staying to the tradition of like, okay, it's a flat stage.
Yeah.
And, honestly, this year, I feel like the Tour de France has been a little bit more like that for the men's side of things, where they've kind of like blown things up a little bit more, and it hasn't been quite as much of what's been expected. But in women's cycling, we see this a lot more, I feel like. And, it's not like always the flat stages are going to end up being a sprinter stage.
For sure. And part of that, I think, is because the women's typically have smaller teams in the races. Like last year's was 6-member teams. This year they added one. It's 7, which is interesting. I think last year there was, I think last year there was 2 fewer teams too. There was 22 and this year there's 24. So if you do the math, it's going, the Pelotons went from 132 riders to 168 this year. So yeah, it might be a little bit more controlled this year with
that might change
one
things
more
up a
team
little
member.
bit. That might make it a little bit more controlled. We'll see. First stage, this flat stage. No, okay, we're gonna do picks. We'll do picks here, for who's going to win the jerseys. If you know, I want to know what everybody else thinks in chat as well. Let us know on socials as well. Tag us up. We'd love to hear about it. Who you think is going to win the yellow, the green, the polka dot, the young jersey, and who is the dark horse for this, the one that's not actually a jersey, but who is the not talked about necessarily, but might come out of the woodwork here. I mean, okay, when it comes to the yellow jersey, who do you think's gonna win?
I'm going to pick Demi Vollering this year because she's been destroying it in the. I mean, she won the Ardennes triple. She won. Man, she's won like several races. I'm looking at where are my notes? I wrote them down somewhere. Yeah, the Ardennes triple, Strade Bianche, Dutch champs, got second in a lot of stuff too. Second to her own teammates in some of the races. And she was second last year in the Femmes.
I think she's super focused here. I have a feeling.
I think so.
It's been quiet around her a little bit. I think there's a lot of training going. Like, I think a lot of focus right now. Like, she did all of that, right? It was like Demi Vollering, and then all of a sudden it was like. And I think it's because of this. I think it's because of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think last year's loss smarted. I think Van Vleuten just took her to town on the big climbs, and I think Demi's going, maybe I think this is my year. I mean, at some point there's going to be a change of the guard, right? Van Vleuten's 40 years old, I think, this year. Demi's like 26, and at some point the young guns are gonna take over and win. But is this the year? I'm saying it's the year just because Demi has been, just watching her race in some of the early season races, she was so strong. What about you? Who's your pick?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go with, I mean, can Van Vleuten go back to back here? And is she still tired? Like from the Giro d'Italia, Dane, like, you know, is there enough, or was that training specifically for this? And it's not like, okay, so the Dani is not 3 weeks, right? That's a big difference there. So I have a feeling that like it can be a good prep.
Well, this one is in 3 weeks, so
no, it's not.
Femmes is
8. So that's what I'm saying though, is that Dani is not like she did another Grand Tour.
Oh, I see. You're not tired.
She didn't do a 3 week. Yeah, she's not tired on that level. Yeah. Like you can't just go back to back to back, and so she can go after this. Sure. You know, where some, you know, in the men's peloton, 3 weeks of racing, and you can't race again necessarily within a couple of months. You know, you got to take a big break, and so that's kind of cool with the women's side of things, is that you can see your all stars over and over again for your favorite riders. This is a tough one here. There's other riders I want to pick, but if I'm going to go with it, those are the two riders. Like for me, it is Van Vleuten versus Vollering, and I would have probably gone with Vollering if you didn't pick first. So, but I'll just keep it. I'll keep it. It's the
other thing with Vollering,
I think AVV is the favorite, but I like picking the underdog. So
yeah, I do too. The other thing with Vollering is her team is just freaking strong. And I don't know, maybe it's going to work against her because some of the members of her team could win stages, and maybe there's going to be some of that. It's not just 6 domestiques for Vollering, but SD Works it's a strong team. And I honestly don't know Movistar's squad as well. I'm sure they've got plenty of strong domestiques there, but SD Works just seems like a powerhouse.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to go next. I'm going to say Vollering as well, actually, if I can do that and not have to pick. Like, it's not like we're picking and, like, have to take one out. I am going to go with Vollering. I like AVV. I think it's going to be tough to beat Annemiek van Vleuten, but I actually, now that you bring in the team aspect of it, I think that as far as support goes around Valorine and tactically wise, ST Works might be have the one up on them. And I think
They've
that
got some strong riders they're bringing in
they just need
for
to
sure.
control AVV on those stages that are long grinds, like
Yeah,
where
I
like
think
she
it's
can
just
just walk away.
stage 7. I think stage 7 is that's going to be the one
Hmm.
where they make or break it.
Yeah, and if they can break AVV on one of those other stages with some teamwork, and I could see
Yeah.
Valorine do a walkaway, and she's done it many times. So pull out
Oh,
some
the other thing with
classics
AVB
racing.
is she's retiring at the end of this season, right? This is her last season. I think she's
Yep.
announced.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, the other fly in the ointment. Is this going to
Mm-hmm.
be? She want to go out on top? I don't know. It'll be poetic either way, right? Cycling's beautiful in that way. Where if Demi wins, it's a kind of a changing of the guard. If AVV wins, it's going out on top. Either way, it'll be a great race.
So sprinters, I think. I mean,
Sprinters,
Weebles hasn't been Weebles hasn't been as strong this year, Lorena. I feel like as she has in years past. I might be wrong about that, but I've been watching a little bit here and
yeah, a
there,
little bit.
and I feel like she hasn't done like last year. She just was absolutely dominating, like unstoppable, and
Yeah,
was high up. Like I think I put her in my roster last year for the virtual. Um, but I this is gonna be a tough one. I think maybe she's gonna come on strong in the middle of in the middle of July here and really dominate. But who are you gonna pick here? I mean, this is the hard one. I'm gonna go with Weebez. Maybe she comes on strong
yeah.
and hits it hard here, but otherwise we got Voss, Balsamo, Norsgaard.
Cool. Charlotte Cool is another one who was Weebus's lead out. She was her the last person in her lead out train last year, and now she's on a different team, and she's been
That's a
winning a
good
lot this
call.
year.
That's a really good
She's
call, actually.
she's on. It's the same team as Molman Pasio, right? Molman's on the. Is that her team? I get some of them mixed up. Team DSM Furmanek is where Cool is. I don't know if Cool's my pick. Uh, Weebus is my favorite because of her team. Again, with SD Works, I think, and we're seeing it with the Tour de France with Alpes and Phoenix having that lead out train. I mean, it made a huge difference. having Matthew Vanderpool as your final lead out guy, no one's coming around you, and
Yeah,
then
it's
Jesper
true.
just jumps and destroys him. And and it seems like SD Works probably has the best chance of having a decent lead out train at the end, in my mind. So that gives Weebus the edge.
Hmm.
But I think Cool's one to watch. I believe Cool has beat Weebus some in some of the early races this year. So she's definitely got a kick.
Always
The
watch
lead
out for
out trains
Mariana
matter a
Voss. I
lot.
mean, Voss is the
Yeah,
green jersey, so
Voss is there
like
too for sure.
defending.
She
But
won
she
it
did,
last year, right? I
yeah.
think she
And
won the green last year.
this is though when it comes to the full out pure sprint, she was winning those in other ways. You know what I mean? Not just your full on pure to the line flat
Yeah,
sprint. I'm not sure that she's got that against the pure sprinters, but she's got those other sprints where you see, Wout Van Aert. She's like the Wout Van Aert, like
yeah,
of the sprint, where it's like, well, if it's hard enough sprint, she's probably going to take it.
yeah. It's a
So
minute long. It does seem
yeah,
like there's less of the lead out train thing that happens in women's cycling. It's a little more scrappy at the end. So yeah,
definitely.
the people who are alone maybe stand a bit more of a chance.
So what are you thinking on the KOM?
KOM, I think I'm just going with Vollering again on that. I think whoever takes stage 7, I think there's going to. I was trying to find where the points were. That's something that frustrates me about Tour de France is I can never find the data that I need, and I wanted to just see here's all the climbs and the points that are given out to them because that's how you can figure out. Uh, but with the idea that Vollering it's either going to be Vollering or ABV at the top of the biggest climb, I'm going to go with her coming away with polka dots. Kind of a boring pick, though.
I'm going to go with Niewiadoma.
Admittedly.
Niewiadoma.
Yeah.
Niewiadoma for the climbing. I think she's. I think that she's going to shift gears to focus on that. I think that's what's going to happen. I think it'll go.
Might be a good move.
I think she'll be going for something more, and then be like, "Look, this is actually my forte, and this is what I can focus on," and swap gears to go after the Queen of the Mountain. I think that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, she can go after Yellow, but I think that it'll most likely be Niewiadoma swapping focus over to the KOM jersey. Dark horse, I'm gonna have to go with our world champion from Zwift, Lois Adegeest. Lois Adegeest. What is she gonna do? I don't know about Dark. I think she's gonna for some sort of like show. Like she's gonna come out and be like, "Bam! Look here, I'm here." Because I mean, it'd be cool just.
That'd be great to see.
It'd be great to see that. We can highlight it for sure. Young jersey.
So
I don't actually know a lot of the young riders personally. I gotta admit that. So.
My dark horse pick was also a world champion from Zwift. The first, Ashley Molman-Pasio.
Nice.
Who's coming back. I mean, she was going to retire, coming back for one more go at it. I don't think she's a GC contender, but she can climb, and I would love to see her. I'd love to see her take a stage, just because of the Zwift connection.
Yeah, it would be.
We like Molman-Pasio.
She looks really motivated too. Like I've been watching some of her training. She's been doing some really cool videos actually on her Instagram. If you haven't seen them, like where she's just showing some insight, like just from not like any like crazy awesome produced stuff that is coming out as well, but just like little videos from herself. Like, hey, this is what I did today. What's going on? And she also has like a voice that she's using within women's cycling to like speak up about stuff, which I really appreciate. I've been noticing that a ton lately. So if you haven't watched that.
I was going to say the same. She's as a voice, as a face for women's cycling and supporting it. She's a force, and it would feel poetic to have her win a stage for sure. Stage or two, why not?
So,
okay, young rider. I got my young rider.
You got a young rider. Okay, go ahead.
I too am not super familiar with the young riders, but I went through all the potential young riders and I found one, an American, Megan Jostrab, who won this year. She raced in the U.S. Collegiate Championships and she won all three, the road, the crit, the omnium for it. And just looks like she got second at Ghent Wilgem this year, second place. So strong rider.
She's a world champion.
I think she's a good contender for it.
She's on Team DSM. She's got some pretty overall. Yeah, I'm seeing this is she's got some pretty good results actually here. Great to see Megan Jastrap. That's a good pick for young riders. I'm going to pick it.
It's from Apple Valley. It's just a few hours away from me.
It's not too far from you. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. As far as Americans go, watch out for Veronica Ewers. Actually, she's a dark horse I probably should have picked up on. Folks is not attending. I don't know if you saw that, but she is having some health issues. She just put it out actually on her Instagram publicly. So hopefully she gets well. I actually saw her. I was really confused. I was broadcasting on Tuesday the race. I think we did Chasing Tour on Tuesday, or it may have been CC, one of the two. But right after the race, I'm just kind of like getting done with productions, and I'm hanging out in Neokyo. Like I'm not actually riding. I'm just like taking care of some stuff, and my Zwift's playing in the background, and my viewer landed on Faulkner, and I'm like, what the heck? What is she doing on Zwift right now? Like, why is she just riding? And it was like 100K. I was like, why is she riding 100K at zone 1 right now? And I was like, and on Zwift, like, because I thought she'd be over in Europe getting ready for the tour. Yeah. Like, and why are you riding 100K on Zwift in Europe right now? Like, what's going on? And then sure enough,
it's gotten to the point with pro riders, you see that and you're like, uh-oh, did they get in a wreck yesterday and I didn't know about it? Are they sick? You see that, you see them on Zwift and this time of year and you go, uh-oh, what's wrong?
Exactly. So yeah, Faulkner is going to be out for this one, which is too bad because I think she really was a contender. Last year it was obvious she was. She's had such great results and everything, but it sounds like she's going to be strong and back racing late August, September. So that's good to see. Well, this has been a really long episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Real quickly here, let's go ahead and go over our picks. The Leo Factory kit. Do you know this kit very well?
Yeah. I first spotted it. I was just riding, I think, with Coco, and I saw a rider with it, and I thought that's a beautiful kit. Like it's just amazing in game. It totally sticks out. And I messaged the rider, "What kit is that?" And they told me, "Oh, it's the Eliel Factory kit, and it's only for factory team members. Like you can't just unlock it." And I'm a big fan of Eliel. I've got a couple of their kits. They're down in SoCal. They live 10 minutes away from where my brother lives, and it's just super high quality stuff. Great kit, and great to see them in game finally, actually.
Yeah, actually, Michael Sweet and Whitney Post, who are viewers of the channel, after they came and stayed here for last year's Tour of America's Dairyland, hooked me up with one of these, sent it in the mail. Big thank you to them. And
Nice.
not this kit specifically. It was their like all orange one actually, but really nice stuff and very cool looking kit. I actually will give this an 8.5, almost a 9 actually. Actually I'll give it a 9. This is a sweet looking kit as far as design goes, and it can really match up with a lot of different. The way that it's designed, sometimes when you got a lot of colors like that, you can't really match it with a whole lot of stuff, but they did it just right where it feels like you can match it with like almost any bike actually with the colors on there. It's good, really good for matching up.
Yeah, I'm the same way. When I see super colorful like rainbow kits, usually I'm turned off. But this one just looks beautiful to me. It's very well done. Yeah, I'd give it a 9.1. I'll go one up.
Outdoing me. And then our garage pick of the week, if you didn't know, we've featured it before, but we had to do it because of these images that Eric sent over. The Zwift Insider in real life kit. You guys still selling these over in Zwift Insider or no?
No, it was like a club kit where it was only open for a month.
Oh, gotcha.
And then
One time
closed.
ago.
I'm going to do it again probably in September maybe. And
yeah, it was just season starting up.
Zwift.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. And how do you get these? By doing tiny races and what else? There was another one?
Any event that's under the Zwift Insider Club. So tiny races, but we also do, like at the end of the tiny race, there's the chat and chill, little short ride. You can do that. And sometimes we do other events, but the tiny races are kind of the
tiny race and chat and chill afterwards to
finish any of them and you'll unlock the kit.
But don't just show up cool and race the race. You have to do all 4.
Do all 4.
Do all 4 or do the chat and chill. Don't come disrupting the tiny races with fresh legs, you punks. Oh my God.
My favorite part of that kit is on the legs. On one leg it says ride harder, and on the other leg it says ride smarter.
Oh, nice.
I've always that's kind of, to me, that's the mantra of Zwift Insider. Like train and get strong, but also be smart.
I like that.
Both of those on there.
Very cool. Very, very. That's not the original design, is it? There was a design before that one, wasn't there, or no?
No, it's the original one.
That's the original Zwift Insider in game as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's got the Watopia map, the map that we sell posters of. It's got it like a kind of a watermark version of the map.
It's like the whole thing. Oh, cool! I didn't know.
Yeah, if you look close at the jersey, it's the Watopia map on the front and back.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's a lot of kind of symbolic.
You see that guy who put the Watopia map up on it, like as wallpaper
on his wall?
You see this?
Yeah, I want to do a post about it because it's so epic. It's a huge. Yeah, it's a full wall in his house.
But he did it in pieces. It was like he got like a printed wallpaper sticker, and he had like 6 or 8 pieces that he like. Then the entire wall is just the Watopia map. That was crazy.
I think it's the biggest one yet. Zwift had done a little bit of, in one of their elevators. They had done the map at one point, like on the walls of their elevator. But this one's even bigger.
All right, well, this has been episode number 53 for The Wrap. You can catch all of the episodes over on ZwiftCommunityLive.com. You can obviously find all the stuff we talked about in relationship to Zwift and Zwift Insider over on ZwiftInsider.com. We've been live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Real quickly, what are you up to for the next week before we go, Eric, that has to do with Zwift Inner Cycling?
Just going to be doing well, yeah, that's another big topic. But I've got a core body temperature sensor,
Oh,
and
those have been getting
I'm gonna be
promoted
jumping into
on my stream here and there. People have been coming
yeah
in saying because they see me taking like ice like
yeah.
cool down things and putting them on my back and putting them in my hands, and like there's been all this research that's been coming out about like there's certain areas of your body you can put cooling factors on to bring your core temperature down.
Mhm. Yeah, and these guys, I mean, this is a whole podcast in itself, but their whole thing is train hot, race cool, and they use this as a training device to make you an overall stronger rider. But there's so much that's interesting about Zwifting with this because you can race indoors and go, oh, this is where you hit your limit. I've got to cool myself better. So anyway, I'm kind of trying to do a deep dive into this,
That'd be
which includes
interesting. I
stuff
would
like
like
heat ramp
I want to
testing.
know what they think about like train hot some like because okay like you go to elevation. Well, sure, train
Yeah,
high
they say it's similar to
sometimes.
that. You're basically creating adaptations, and then when you race, you're stronger all around, even if you're not racing in the heat.
Yeah, that's I think that can definitely be utilized. I don't know if you always want to train hot though. I think
No,
but
no, that you don't. They have a
yeah.
whole protocol for it. Very
Okay,
well
cool.
documented on their site, actually.
Really?
Really,
Okay,
really well
cool.
done. Yeah,
That sounds awesome actually. I'm looking forward to more information on that one for sure. I'm going to be racing Wisconsin Off-Road Series this weekend, state championships at Trek's headquarters actually is where the race is at.
nice.
They have a Trek trails like a couple of miles away from the actual headquarters that they own some trails that they build and they test stuff on. They open it up every year for Wisconsin Off-Road Series state race and as well as a NICA race every year. So going to be really cool. So that's what I'm up to. I'm pretty much just resting till then because we've been putting in big hours. But then next week it'll be back on the bike for massive hours on Zwift. So watch out for lots of live streams from Nathan next week for racing on Zwift again. Probably do the tiny races again. So, all right, everybody. Thanks. I'm definitely going to do it. Thanks for tuning in. Check all this out over at ZwiftMyLife.com. This is also a podcast. You can find the podcast by searching Zwift, the rap, anywhere that you do download your podcast. We'll see you next week, and it should be back for episode number 54. As always, everybody, thanks a lot from Eric and I. Right on.